What is ecology? So, to start things off for our ecology unit, we just need to make sure we are able to define ecology. And the simplest definition is just it's studying all of the organisms and how they're interacting with one another in their environment. And that is exactly what this says. So, the study of interactions that take place between organisms and their environment. So, it explains how they're affecting each other. And how they're competing with each other for food. If you have lions eating the zebra, it's just looking at all of those different interactions. Habitat is a vocab term here, and this is just looking at the place that the organism is living in. And the niche or the niche is an organism's total way of life. So it's looking at all of the food, the air, the water, the space, just every single thing that an organism needs to survive. That is what this encompasses. So, in addition to different living factors in an environment that's going to impact a living thing, there's also abiotic factors. So, the water, sunlight, temperature, this lightning you see here right now, all of these things will definitely impact an organism. These abiotic factors also come into play with the biotic factors. So there's a question that you have or an example on your one of your Schoology questions that talks about how a bullfrog lives in the mud on the side of a pond. Well, in that mud, the mud is a abiotic factor, but there's also bacteria living in that mud and there's roots in that mud. Those are biotic factors, which are the living factors in an environment. So these two types of factors are very closely intertwined. So the biotic factors, just to make that clear, it's every single living thing, whether that is bacteria, plants, or animals, it's all of the living things inside of that environment. And so they definitely come into contact with each other. You have direct competition. Organisms are fighting for food. So maybe you have bunnies and birds that both want to eat that same type of sunflower seed or flower. I don't know how often birds are actually eating flowers, but if they did, they would be competing with each other. So biotic factors have a big role in a living environment. So for this creepy guy we see here, would we consider this an abiotic factor or a biotic factor? I think there's one of these in Finding Nemo. Very horrifying. This would be a biotic factor. It's living. Looks like a creepy zombie that's not living, but it is living. Or a tornado. This is a abiotic factor. So this definitely would have a big impact on an environment. So this one, we're looking at water. We have some rocks here. This would be abiotic. Coral. Ooh, this is a tricky one. Is it a rock? Is it living? So this is actually a living thing, so that would make it biotic. Very good. So something else we need to know just with this introduction section to ecology is how are all of these different levels of ecology kind of put together? So we start off with a very small level, which is the atom. We learned about that probably the second week of school. Those are put together to make molecules. So we've been talking about a molecule of water. It's H2O. There's 2 hydrogen atoms in there. There's 1 oxygen atom in there. They're making 1 molecule of water. You can have different molecules coming together to make an organelle. Different organelles come together to make a cell, the building block of life. Cells are coming together to make tissues, like your heart tissue is made up of all these cardiac cells to make your heart. And when those tissues are put together to make your heart, the organ, for this example, would be your heart. And then your heart and all of your organisms come together to make your different body systems. So you should be learning about that in your health class. Maybe you're taking your online health class right now and you're getting that done. So this says here that ecologists have organized the interactions an organism takes part in into different levels according to complexity. So that's what we just went through. or what we're going to continue to go through. So we have an organism, which is just one living thing. We have one zebra here. It's living, it's made out of cells, it needs food, it grows, it develops, it interacts with different things in its environment. If we have a bunch of different zebras all together here, this picture is freaking me out. A lot of stripes going on here. But if we're looking at just the zebra that are living together, that is a population. If we're looking at one community, this is going to include the living things that are all living in the same area. So we have these zebras, we have these wildebeests, we have trees, we have grass, we have the bacteria that are living in the dirt and on the butts of the zebras. There's a lot of living things going on here. They make up a community. They're all interacting together because they're living in the same place at the same time. So of course, they'll be interacting with each other. Okay, the next level would be the ecosystem. So the populations of plants and animals that interact with each other. Plus, you're also tossing in here the abiotic factor. So the dirt, soil, air, water, sunlight, the weather. Is it snowing? Probably not in this picture. It looks like this is an African savanna here. But all of the different non-living things would be included in the ecosystem because they're also very important and directly impact the living things here. Okay, next we have a biome. So you should be, or maybe should have completed already that biome activity that is posted. This includes different regions of the earth that they are generally at the same latitude, which makes them have the same amount of sunlight, similar climate, similar amount of precipitation, which impacts the amount of vegetation that lives there, makes it very similar. So we have examples of the tundra, grasslands, deciduous forests, and you should be able to, after you complete that activity, come up with a bunch of others. And you should also be able to tell me which one we live in. The last level of organization here that ecologists study is the biosphere, which includes just the portion of the earth that supports life. So that's not the entire earth, like all the way deep into the core of the earth, because you better believe that is super hot and cannot sustain life there. But just the surface of the earth, the air, the ocean, anywhere that life can be found, that's the biosphere. So bio, remember, means life. Sphere is a sphere. So this is literally just meaning the sphere that supports life. We have some Lion King questions to wrap up these notes here. So if we're looking at little Simba here, which level of organization is he at? The smallest level, which is organism. Okay, our next picture here, it looks like we see Pride Rock. Ooh, but we're not including Pride Rock. So we have the zebra, giraffes, elephants, antelope, trees. So I am mentioning all living things, which means this would be a community. If we were to throw in the Pride Rock and the clouds and the air and the water, that would not be community. That would be the ecosystem. Okay, looks like we have here Simba and his mother. Bonus points to you if you remember her name. I feel like it starts with a K. Not quite sure what it is, though. Drawing a blank. But if we're looking at Simba and his mom, who is also a lion, that means we're looking at multiple lions. That means they are making a population. This is a small population, but there are multiple organisms here that are the same species, so we'll say that's a population. And this does conclude our ecology notes. Please make sure you're continuing to check Schoology for updates and other assignments, and make sure you are getting them done on time.